Every villain believes they're the hero of their own story. That's not a cliché. It's a warning, because the darkest paths don't begin with evil intentions. They begin with a single choice, one that seems harmless, maybe even reasonable, in the moment it's made. In the story you know, Harry Potter refused Draco Malfoy's hand. He chose Ron Weasley. He chose Gryffindor. He chose to fight against the rising darkness rather than dance with it. But here's what keeps historians of magic awake at night. Harry almost didn't refuse. There was hesitation, a flicker, a breath where the boy who lived considered reaching out, taking that pale hand, and walking a different path entirely. What if he had? What if Harry Potter, orphan, outcast, desperate for belonging, had seen something familiar in Draco Malfoy's arrogance? What if he'd recognized the loneliness behind those cold gray eyes? This is the story of that timeline, the one where Harry shook Draco's hand. But I need to warn you about something before we begin. This isn't a story about friendship. This isn't a tale of redemption where two rivals find common ground and save the world together. This is the story of how Tom Riddle almost won, not through violence, not through fear, but through something far more insidious, through patience, through grooming, through the slow corruption of the one person who was supposed to destroy him. By the end of this timeline, Harry Potter will stand in the ruins of everything he once loved. And the question that will haunt you isn't whether he chose wrong. It's whether he ever truly had a choice at all. The Hogwarts Express rattles through the Scottish Highlands, steam billowing against a gray September sky. Harry Potter sits alone in a compartment, his forehead still tender from the scar he's only just learned to understand. 11 years old, dressed in clothes that don't fit, carrying a wand that chose him for reasons he can't comprehend. He has no friends. He has no family. He has nothing except a prophecy he doesn't know exists and a destiny he never asked for. When the compartment door slides open, he looks up with hope. Draco Malfoy enters like he owns the train, flanked by Crabbe and Goyle, chin lifted, posture perfect. He introduces himself with the confidence of someone who's never been denied anything in his life. "You'll find some wizarding families are better than others," Draco says, extending his hand. "You don't want to go making friends with the wrong sort. I can help you there." In the timeline you know, Harry's eyes flick to Ron Weasley, freckled, nervous, smudged with dirt. He chooses the underdog. He refuses Draco's hand, but not here. Here, Harry hesitates. He thinks about 10 years in a cupboard under the stairs, about hand-me-down clothes and missed meals and being treated like he was worthless, about finally entering a world where he matters, where he's special, where people want to be his friend. And Draco's hand is still extended. "Okay," Harry says quietly. The handshake is firm, brief. Draco's palm is cool and dry against Harry's fingers. He smiles, not warmly, but with satisfaction. "You won't regret this, Potter." Ron Weasley watches from across the compartment. His face cycles through confusion, hurt, and finally something that looks like resignation. He's seen this before. The famous kid choosing the rich kid, the special one gravitating toward power. He says nothing. He looks away, and just like that, a universe fractures. The ripples won't be visible for months, but they're already spreading through Hogwarts, through the Ministry, through the plans of a Dark Lord watching from the shadows with very great interest, because Harry Potter just handed Voldemort something more valuable than any Horcrux. He handed him an opening. The Sorting Hat barely touches Harry's head before it screams. "Slytherin!" The great hall goes silent, not the excited silence that greets a normal sorting, This is shock. This is wrongness. Dumbledore's blue eyes lose their twinkle. McGonagall's lips press into a thin line. At the Gryffindor table, Ron Weasley stares at his empty plate. Harry walks to the Slytherin table, and Draco Malfoy claps him on the back like a hunting dog that's finally caught its prey. "I knew it," Draco whispers. "I knew you were one of us." But Harry isn't one of them, not yet. He's still the same scared orphan who just wanted a friend. He doesn't understand what he's done. He doesn't understand what Slytherin means. The legacy, the expectations, the invisible web of pure blood politics now wrapping around him like spider silk. Hermione Granger approaches him in the library 3 weeks later. Her bushy hair is even wilder than usual. Her eyes are filled with the desperate intensity of someone who needs to understand. "You're not like them," she says. "I can tell. You don't believe any of that blood purity nonsense, do you?" Harry opens his mouth to answer, but Draco appears behind Hermione like a ghost. "Potter doesn't associate with mudbloods," he says. The word lands like a slap. "Run along, Granger." Hermione looks at Harry, waiting, hoping, and Harry, 11 years old, desperate to keep the only friend he's ever had, terrified of being alone again, says nothing. Hermione's face crumbles. She walks away without another word. That night, Harry lies in his 4-poster bed in the Slytherin dormitory, green light filtering through the lake water above. He tells himself it doesn't matter. He tells himself he'll talk to her later, explain, make things right. He never does. But someone else notices Harry's silence. Someone files it away for future reference. Someone begins to understand exactly how to break the boy who lived, not through force, but through loneliness. Severus Snape watches Harry across the potions classroom and sees something that terrifies him. He sees Lily's son becoming everything Lily despised, and he glimpses for the first time in years the faintest ghost of Dumbledore's worst nightmare. What happens when the chosen one chooses wrong? By Christmas, Harry Potter is unrecognizable. Not physically. He still has his mother's eyes, his father's messy hair. But there's something different in the way he moves. Shoulders back, chin lifted. The posture of someone who's learned that status matters, that power demands respect, that hesitation is weakness. Draco has been an excellent teacher. The Malfoy heir doesn't use force. He uses inclusion. He brings Harry into conversations about politics, about bloodlines, about the difficult choices pure-blood families had to make during the war. He never defends Voldemort directly. That would be too obvious. Instead, he plants questions. Do you really think Dumbledore has your best interests at heart? He left you with muggles, Harry. Muggles who starved you, who locked you in a cupboard. The ministry is corrupt. Everyone knows it. They persecuted innocent families after the war, stole fortunes, destroyed lives. My father barely escaped Azkaban. And for what? For being in the wrong place at the wrong time? Blood purity isn't about hate, Harry. It's about preservation, about protecting a way of life that muggles would destroy if they knew we existed. Harry listens. Harry nods. Harry begins to believe. The troll in the girls' bathroom nearly kills Hermione Granger that Halloween. In the original timeline, Harry and Ron rush to save her, cementing a friendship that would change the course of history. In this timeline, Harry is at the Slytherin table when the news comes. He feels a pang of guilt, sharp, uncomfortable. But Draco's hand clamps down on his shoulder. Nothing to do with us, Draco says. Gryffindor problem. Harry stays seated. Hermione survives, barely. Professor Quirrell finds her unconscious. the troll dead at her feet, killed by her own desperate magic. She spends 2 weeks in the hospital wing. When she returns, she looks at Harry with eyes that have gone cold and hard. She never speaks to him again. The mirror of Arist shows Harry something that breaks him, not his parents, not anymore. He sees himself on a throne of green and silver, crowned with serpents, surrounded by people who bow before him, powerful, feared, never alone again. Dumbledore finds him there at midnight. "Curious," the old wizard says, his voice soft. "Most people see their heart's desire in this mirror, but some see what they've been taught to want." Harry looks at the image of himself, commanding, terrible, glorious. "What's the difference?" he asks. Dumbledore has no answer. The Philosopher's Stone never tempts Harry, not because he's virtuous, but because Draco convinces him it's not worth the risk. Why chase immortality when the Malfoy fortune can buy anything Harry desires? Why fight Voldemort when Voldemort is already dead? Quirrell dies alone in the forbidden corridor, his master's spirit fleeing into the night. Harry doesn't even know how close he came. Second year brings the Chamber of Secrets, and here the timeline twists in horrifying ways. Because Harry can speak Parseltongue, Harry is in Slytherin. Harry, they whisper, might be the heir himself. Draco thinks this is hilarious. He encourages the rumors. He watches the Muggle-borns flinch when Harry walks past and laughs behind his hand. But Harry sees something Draco doesn't. He sees the fear in Colin Creevy's eyes before the boy is petrified. He sees the devastation on Hagrid's face when the gamekeeper is dragged to Azkaban. He sees Ginny Weasley growing pale and thin, writing in a diary that writes back. And he does nothing, because doing something would mean standing against his only friends. Because courage requires more than righteous anger. It requires someone to stand with you. Harry Potter has no one. Tom Riddle's diary survives the year. Ginny Weasley nearly dies in the chamber before Dumbledore intervenes, barely saving her at the cost of his own wand hand. The Ministry covers it up. Lucius Malfoy donates 50,000 galleons to St. Mungo's. Nobody connects the dots, but Voldemort is growing stronger, and Harry, without knowing it, is helping. The Tri-Wizard Tournament changes everything. Harry's name emerges from the Goblet of Fire, and the wizarding world explodes. Cheater, attention seeker, dark wizard in training. The Daily Prophet runs headlines that would have destroyed him, except Draco's father controls half the journalists in Britain. Instead, the narrative shifts. Harry Potter, Slytherin champion. The boy who lived, proving that ambition isn't evil. Cedric Diggory becomes Harry's unexpected ally. The Hufflepuff champion is everything Harry isn't. Kind, principled, genuinely good. They train together in secret. They push each other. And for the first time in years, Harry remembers what real friendship feels like. "You're not like them," Cedric says one night, echoing Hermione's words from years ago. "There's still good in you, Harry." Harry wants to believe him. The graveyard at Little Hangleton shatters that hope forever. The portkey drops them among the tombstones, and Peter Pettigrew is waiting. Cedric reaches for his wand, moves to protect Harry. "Kill the spare," says a cold voice. Green light. A body falls. Cedric Diggory dies, looking at Harry with confusion in his eyes. Not fear. Confusion. Because he trusted Harry. Because he believed. Voldemort rises from the cauldron, reborn in flesh and blood. He looks at Harry, bound to a gravestone, screaming, covered in his friend's blood, and smiles. "I've been watching you, Harry Potter, watching you grow. The Dark Lord's red eyes gleam. You could have been my enemy. Instead, you've become my greatest asset. Dumbledore's army never forms. How could it? There's no Hermione to organize it, no Harry to inspire it. Umbridge's regime at Hogwarts goes unchallenged. The Ministry's lies spread unchecked. By the time the truth about Voldemort's return becomes undeniable, it's far too late. Harry watches from the Slytherin common room as the world burns. He's 15 now, then 16. Old enough to see the game for what it is. Old enough to understand that Draco was never really his friend, that he was a tool, a weapon, a path to Harry's soul that Lucius Malfoy and his master had been cultivating for years. But understanding doesn't bring freedom. The chains are too tight. The alternatives are too terrifying. Sirius Black reaches out in secret. Desperate letters slipped into Harry's robes, pleas to meet, to talk, to remember who he really is. Harry wants to respond. His hand shakes over the parchment 100 times. He never writes back. Sirius dies at the Ministry, fighting Death Eaters who knew he was coming. Someone told them. Someone leaked the Order's plans. Harry tells himself it wasn't him, that he never shared those letters, that Draco finding them in his trunk was an accident. But deep down, he knows. Dumbledore falls from the Astronomy Tower on a cold June night. Harry watches from the shadows, frozen, as Snape raises his wand. He could intervene. He could try. He doesn't. Severus Snape has one final card to play. The potions master corners Harry in a Hogwarts corridor, weeks before the battle everyone knows is coming. His black eyes are filled with something Harry has never seen there before. Grief, regret, love. Your mother was my best friend, Snape says. She was the only person who ever believed in me, and I let her down. I let her die. Harry stares. He has no words. I have spent 16 years trying to protect you, failing to protect you, watching you become everything she would have despised. He presses a vial into Harry's hand. Memories, silvery and swirling. Watch these, learn the truth, then decide who you want to be. The pensive reveals everything, the Horcruxes, the prophecy, the truth about Harry's scar, the piece of Voldemort's soul living inside him, the terrible, impossible truth. Harry must die for Voldemort to be defeated. Harry emerges from the memories with tears streaming down his face. For the first time in 7 years, he feels something other than emptiness. He feels purpose. Before we see how this ends, I have to ask you something. After everything Harry has done, after years of complicity and silence and choosing the wrong side again and again, does he deserve redemption? Let me know in the comments. And stay until the end. Because what happens next changes everything. The Battle of Hogwarts descends into chaos. Death Eaters swarm the ancient castle. Defensive spells shatter against dark magic. Students fight beside professors, blood mixing with rainwater on the cobblestones. Harry Potter walks through the carnage like a ghost. He passes Draco Malfoy huddled in a corner, pale and trembling, all his arrogance stripped away by the reality of war. He passes the bodies of students he went to class with, students who might have been his friends in another life. Hermione Granger stands in the entrance hall, leading a group of fifth years against Fenrir Greyback. She's magnificent, fierce and brilliant, and everything Harry threw away years ago on the Hogwarts Express. Their eyes meet. Hermione raises her wand. Harry raises his hands. "I'm going to end this," he says. She doesn't lower her wand. "You should have ended it years ago." "I know." Harry's voice cracks. "I know." He walks into the Forbidden Forest, toward the circle of Death Eaters, toward the thing wearing Tom Riddle's face that he should have fought from the very beginning. Voldemort laughs when he sees him. "Harry Potter, my prodigal son, come to beg for mercy?" "No." Harry stops 10 feet from the Dark Lord. "I came to die." The laughter stops. Voldemort's red eyes narrow. "The prophecy," Harry says. "Neither can live while the other survives. I understand now. I'm your last Horcrux, the accident you never meant to make." He spreads his arms. "Kill me. Destroy the piece of yourself that lives in my scar. And then face Hogwarts alone." Voldemort's wand rises. Doubt flickers across his serpentine features. "You would sacrifice yourself after everything?" Harry thinks about Cedric dying in the graveyard, about Sirius falling through the veil, about Dumbledore crumpling from the tower, about all the moments he could have chosen differently and didn't. "I should have been brave," Harry says softly. "I should have been brave from the beginning." Avada Kedavra! Green light swallows the world. Harry wakes in a place that looks like King's Cross Station, white and empty and eternal. Dumbledore is waiting. "You came back," the old wizard says, tears in his eyes. "After all this time." "I didn't have a choice," Harry whispers. Dumbledore shakes his head. "My boy, you always had a choice. That's what makes this matter." Here is what this timeline teaches us about Harry Potter. He was never inherently good. Goodness isn't a trait you're born with, like green eyes or a lightning scar. It's a choice you make, over and over, even when choosing right costs you everything. Harry's parents were brave. Harry's prophecy was meaningful. But none of that made him a hero. Only Harry could make himself a hero. The Malfoys understood something Dumbledore never fully grasped. Loneliness is a weapon. A child starved for love will accept any hand that reaches for them, even if that hand is poisoned. Harry didn't shake Draco's hand because he believed in blood purity. He shook it because he wanted a friend. Because belonging seemed more important than principles. That's not evil, that's human. But the path of small compromises leads somewhere. Every silence is a choice. Every looked away from cruelty is a permission granted. Harry didn't become complicit through one grand decision. He became complicit through 1,000 tiny surrenders. The miracle isn't that he found redemption. The miracle is that redemption was possible at all. Snape's memories didn't change Harry's circumstances. They changed his understanding. They showed him that it's never too late to choose differently, but that choosing differently might cost you your life. Harry walked into that forest knowing he would die. That's not sacrifice. That's penance. In this timeline, the Battle of Hogwarts ends differently. Harry Potter's sacrifice destroys the Horcrux in his scar, but his body does not survive. There is no return trip from King's Cross. The boy simply doesn't wake up. Voldemort falls anyway. Without his anchor in Harry's soul, without Nagini, who died in battle, he's mortal at last. Neville Longbottom lands the killing blow. But the wizarding world doesn't celebrate a savior. They mourn one. They bury Harry Potter at Godric's Hollow, beside the parents he barely remembered. Ron Weasley stands at the back, still wondering what would have happened if Harry had chosen him on that train. Hermione places flowers on the grave of the boy who never found the courage to be her friend. Some say Harry's ghost still walks the corridors of Hogwarts, not as a figure of terror, as a warning, a reminder that every child deserves to be loved, that every outcast deserves a hand, and that the hand you take might shape the person you become. In the timeline, you know, Harry Potter chose the boy with dirt on his nose. That's why he lived.